I hope everyone is enjoying the event so far. I know a lot of individuals have been with us since first thing this morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time, right here in the Boston area. But I can see we have quite a few individuals in many different parts of the world. So welcome to this, our fourth panel. And on this panel, we have two of the speakers that you've heard over this past hour. I'd like to start out by introducing everyone on the panel, and then we'll jump into questions. As I can see, we have quite a few questions that have come in. First, we have Channing Ferrer, who is the CRO and CEO of the Americas for Brevo. So, Channing, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Michael. Great to be here.
And next we have Andrea Lechner-Becker, who is the Chief Strategy Officer over at GNW Consulting. Andrea, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Nailed the last name, by the way. Not an easy name to pronounce, but you absolutely nailed it. It's a good job, Michael.
I love it. I love it. Well, I definitely will accept the kudos. So there you go. And I see we had a bunch of questions come in, but I think let's start off with some of the questions that came in several times, and I'll just pick one. So Channing, the first question that came in was for you, and it actually came in from here in the U.S., right in New York City, from Noah. And let's see here. So Noah is asking, when you warn against infinite AI content, what is the first reporting change you would ask revenue and marketing leaders to make so they stop rewarding volume and start rewarding attention and impact?
Yeah, and I think we did some analysis on this recently with just email content and email volumes. And what we saw, just for context for everyone, what we saw is email open rates, click-through rates, and unsubscribe rates. And unsubscribe rates aren't actually changing that much, but open rates are dropping drastically as email volume is going up. So it's kind of the inverse of what you might expect. As email volume stays lower, we actually see better open rates, better click-through rates. And what that's implying, and what we're seeing in other data points as well, is that people who are creating a lot of AI-driven content, kind of with limited maybe context, or just going kind of after a volume play, often driven through AI-led content, are not gaining traction. They're actually losing traction in many ways. So what we're finding is that volume isn't the answer. It's very easy to create volume now with AI. So I think people are naturally just defaulting to finding ways to increase volume of content on your site, content sent via email or whatever form that might be. But that's not actually gaining you the end results. The end result is ultimately someone clicking through and getting to the CTA that you're trying to drive towards. So relevance is the thing that's most important, and making sure whatever content is being created is very relevant for the audience. So I'd say the action that I would recommend coming out of this and the analysis that we did is ensuring and focusing any AI assistance or content creation, really focusing around relevance for people as opposed to volume.
So breaking through the marketing clutter, shall we say, obviously from your study, relevance clearly important. How about uniqueness in terms of the type of content?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say we didn't do a study on uniqueness. It's a little hard to analyze fully, but my recommendation from talking to a lot of our customers is you have to stand out, and you have to find a way to, number one, be relevant for the audience that you're talking about, but hyper relevant. It's not just semi-relevant. I would put a nice big adjective around it, because we need to ensure that what that audience is gaining is value. And that value comes from that relevance, but also unique relevance, I think, is a great way to think about it, Michael. Is how do you add an extra element of value to the customer? And unique value is a great way to do it. Bringing a new perspective, a new point of view, something interesting that's different is that unique angle. And that definitely brings the value that people are looking for.
Makes a lot of sense. And obviously with all of the models out there, if the content already exists somewhere out there, the LLMs have already seen it. So
Yep.
makes a lot of sense that breaking through is so important. Andrea, the next question came to us for you, and this is, let's see, it's from Madison, who's just outside of Denver in Colorado. And Madison is asking, when you help brands evolve from classic SEO to generative engine optimization or GEO, what is the very first diagnostic you run so executives can see how often AI assistants are already mentioning or ignoring, for that matter, their company?
Yeah, so I always will do a ton of education in any deck that I do. So you got mostly an education deck, but we'll do audits for people. And the first thing is, this is a brand new space. So I bring a ton of research from the industry and what's going on. And if you're looking to make the case for your executives, I highly recommend looking at people who track LLM visibility. So the tool that I like the most is Profound, but SEMrush talks about this all the time. Ahrefs talks about this all the time. So if you follow them on LinkedIn, one of their growth strategies is to share widely all of this research right on LinkedIn. And so I follow their people on LinkedIn and I follow their blogs really closely. They have a ton of always evolving research that explores how often people are using LLMs. The other piece of research that I really like to share with executives is from Sixth Sense. Depends if you're in B2B or B2C, but Sixth Sense did B2B research and they showed that 92 or 94, I always get that stat mixed up. 92 or 90, we'll go with the less one, right? So 92% of B2B buyers use LLMs at some point in the discovery process, which is an incredible number. So I think the reality is that the majority of people that are either in market or are not yet in market are using LLMs to discover and shortlist a number of vendors at this point. This is not debatable. This is the buyer behavior that is occurring. And so the first thing that I would do is just educate using third-party sources that help your executives understand what that situation looks like. And then I would use a tool. So Profound is my tool of choice, but I know there are lots of ones that are much, much cheaper. I think, Shannon, didn't you have a recommendation from?
Yeah. Profound's a great one. Peck.ai is one that we use. PEEC.ai we like.
Yeah. So there's lots of these you can ask AI, right? What the cheaper versions of this are. And I would just see where you can go get a free diagnostic. And it's very clear. Unfortunately, if you're not a leader in visibility, where your brand does and doesn't show up. And I would say, as I mentioned in my talk, that a lot of brands really, this is an aha moment for them to see how they are perceived out on the internet. These LLMs do not hold any punches, right? And it's not as fuzzy as it was with SEO. You really see how your brand is being positioned against your competitors in a way that is startling to a lot of people. So again, you can invest in Profound if you want to go high end, or you can find a more cost-effective way to just get the stats in order for you to make the case to your executives. Also, I'd be remiss if I don't pitch my own audit. I do it for free. So you can also just contact me. I will give you an audit and you can just show it to your execs too. I'll use all of my expensive tools to give you an audit.
So for a lot of the executives that are at the event today listening in, what is the ultimate, and I'll throw this question out to both of you, what is the ultimate goal of GEO? Is it getting your brand mentions out there across AI search, or is it driving traffic, or how has it changed from SEO to GEO? What are the ultimate goals?
Yeah, I'll take a first stab at that. And so ultimately you do want pipeline, right? So the numbers from people who have invested early on in this, Webflow is a big user or a big use case here. They report that their referral traffic from LLMs, so ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, right? Cowork, all of these things. They convert at 6x what organic traffic has historically done. So that conversion, right? So people who sign up for a demo, 6x what was happening for organic Google. So the big thing that you will hear as a critique of the LLM space and optimizing for AI visibility is all around that the number of referrals that come from LLMs today versus Google. Google, I'll speak a little bluntly because I think we're all friends here. Google has a monopoly on search, right? When you look at the data behind how many referrals happen on the internet that originate at Google, it is massive. I have a pie chart in my presentation, and it's well over 50%, right? So there is no getting away from the idea that Google is still the main source of referral traffic for the internet. Okay, so Google is still super important. Optimizing for Google is still super, super important. You should not go to a place where you just don't care about Google and now all you're doing is LLMs. The first thing is to shore up your Google search traffic. The good thing about that is the same stuff that Google cares about, because it's really just a robot too, is the same stuff that LLMs care about, right? So optimizing for your H1s, your meta descriptions, focusing on a keyword for each blog so that you don't cannibalize terms. All of those things are still super important. And then just the big difference between AI and how Google has historically operated is they're more focused on things like fan out. And obviously, instead of Googling for a certain term, a prompt is going to have tons of different words, and it's going to take a bunch of different context into the conversation. So one of the big components of context that typically matters in AI search that has not historically mattered for Google is where you are in the world. So LLMs will take context like that, or how big your business is, or how tech savvy you are, in order to give you a really customized and personalized experience. That's the big difference, and some of the like sort of mechanisms behind how LLMs are choosing how to look at your brand. But again, they're using all of these sources that Google has historically sort of piecemealed, right? Like they've created a web of what you look like on the internet called reg. They've done that for a long time, but LLMs have really ratcheted up and are using things like Reddit, which I'm sure most people have heard is a big source of data for LLMs that was not historically quite as, I don't know if they just, Google, it's not like they didn't search Reddit terms or they didn't surface Reddit subreddits or conversations, but the way that they did it, because it's in such a silo, is very different than the way that LLMs are thinking about it, the way that LLMs are using YouTube and TikTok. Like they're just much, much better at creating a true picture of how your brand looks, which means that our job as marketers has become a little bit more complicated, because SEO really focused on your website and how that shows up in Google. And now LLMs are taking this holistic picture of what your brand looks like on the internet. And a lot of, especially in my world, my B2B marketers have not really focused that much on how do I look on Reddit? How do I look on YouTube? Am I even on YouTube? Right? No, I posted like one webinar from 2014. Anyways, I'm going to stop diatribing.
Makes a lot of sense. And then, Channing, same question to you quickly, and then I want to jump back into these questions.
Sure, yeah.
I want to make sure we get to as many as we can.
Definitely. Obviously, we're definitely targeting traffic. That's one thing. But beyond just that, I think we look at LLMs as another mechanism for ranking in things like G2 Crowd. You go to G2 Crowd to see how you're ranking. Now LLMs provide that same insight. So what we do is we monitor our LLM traffic sourced from LLMs, but we also monitor LLM outputs to see how they're ranking us in comparisons. Because a lot of times people go to an LLM for that ranking, and we want to make sure we're ranking high enough. They say, give me the list of the top 5 software providers of A, B, and C, or providers of A, B, and C. So that's something we monitor very closely. And that doesn't always show up in that direct traffic, but it's a way that people will search for things. So we look at that as well.
So I'm going to spin the globe and let's head over to Lisbon, Portugal, where Marco has a question for you, Channing. Marco is asking, looking ahead 3 years, what new commercial roles or skills do you expect to emerge as companies move from campaign-based marketing to always-on AI orchestrated customer journeys?
Yeah, and I presume he's referencing roles as in marketing roles.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, and for context very quickly, one of the things that we are anticipating and even building into Brevo, for example, is this idea to create agentic marketing campaigns and run kind of independently or through an agentic experience, kind of run different marketing initiatives, right? So today we have a lot of AI capabilities that sit in our tools, But ultimately, where I see this going in not that far distant future, saying I need a marketing system. I want to go and run a targeted campaign of a win-back campaign on these customers that have left me over the past 6 months. Here's a certain amount of money I have to spend on that campaign. Go and generate some results. And it'll run a campaign. It'll do your PPC for you. It'll do your targeted outreach. It'll generate some SEO. It'll do all the things that are needed to run that sort of a campaign. So what human involvement is needed to do that? Number one is AI skill set. I mean, very clearly, we still are going to be driving the way we do things through human-led ideas. And to capitalize on those ideas, we need to be able to give our LLM friends and AI-based tools direction. So I'd say a big skill set is going to be that understanding of how to leverage AI tools. And this isn't lightweight leverage. This isn't going in and saying, help me write a piece of content. This is going into Claude Code and building a software landing page that has some sort of conversion mechanism built into it, and doing that on your own in an afternoon, not in a matter of multiple weeks with the help of other people. So I think that's sort of more technical know-how. But the nice thing about the way AI tools and LLM work is you don't really need to know how to code. You just need to know how the output works. You need to know how the technology works, but you don't actually have to be able to write in that language. And I think that's going to be the key thing is creativity and a general understanding of what's capable. And then, of course, that willingness to leverage technology in everything we do. So I'm being a little bit vague because the world is moving so quickly right now. It's hard to predict exactly what those roles are, but I think those are the skill sets that are going to be very clear, 1 to 2 years from now.
So the next question came in for Andrea, and this is from Tyler, who's just outside of Austin, Texas. And Tyler is asking, as you map content to AI-driven journeys instead of blue links, how do you persuade skeptical marketing teams to stop obsessing over rankings and to start designing assets for citation and inclusion inside AI overviews?
My philosophy is there are not diametrically opposed objectives, right? So I believe that a great piece of content drives classic blue links. And again, Google still owns referral traffic, and those blue links are still important. Showing up on the first page of Google is still important. And you can add to those exact same pages what you need for LLMs. So schema, FAQs, slightly adjusting H2s to be questions instead of statements, things like that are impactful for LLMs. I would say really LLMs often just expose things you should have been doing to begin with in SEO if you were really focused on SEO. In a way that a lot of teams just didn't focus on all of this nitty gritty. Again, I end up harping a lot on something that seems so trivial and silly, which is the H2s. But H2s, a lot of my clients will make them H3s in WordPress or Webflow simply because they don't like the style sheet of H2s, right? And decisions like that are detrimental to both. They've always been detrimental to SEO. Maybe they just weren't as obvious as they are detrimental to LLMs. So I don't think that you should be in two different camps and fighting over what the content looks like. I think great content serves both masters, if you will.
And next question came in for Channing, and this is from Emily, who is in, she's just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And Emily's asking, when AI systems are dynamically testing offers and messages, how do you ensure finance and RevOps still have enough predictability to forecast pipeline and revenue with confidence?
Interesting one. So again, for context, as we look at the future state, we're anticipating and expecting very clearly that AI agents will help drive a lot of what we do, both from a buying perspective and from a selling/marketing perspective. So to make that work well, we have to understand who our buyers are. And when our buyers become AI agents, it shifts the model a little bit, shifts the way we think about things. And it means we need to make sure we have KPIs, top of funnel, middle funnel KPIs, to understand how those agents are engaging and interacting. So I think the KPIs are what's going to change a little bit for us. I think we'll still have this idea of website traffic. We'll still have this idea of MQLs that occur, but I think the sources for those will adapt. the way we think about customers interacting with our website today and other sources of marketing is very visual. In the future state, that I think will adjust, and the way LLMs and even AI agents ultimately are interacting isn't as visual. It's through content, it's through data points, it's through APIs. So I think the way we still need to have endpoints for us to track, but those endpoints are going to change. So I really expect the way we monitor the pipeline and the funnel health is going to be through, of course, through KPIs, but those KPIs are going to evolve. And we'll begin to look at things, like API touch points or webhook connections on different apps that are created, because apps will be a driver of demand in the future as well. So I think we'll have to continue to evolve what those are exactly, but we need to think about them through a more technical lens than a UI driven lens.
Yeah, and I'll also throw out, Emily, testing should always be a subset of your overall marketing budget. So, I am not 100% sure that, it's going to impact, predictability and forecasting as much as if you were just flipping a switch, which, clearly you want to roll things out in a very measured cadence. This next question came to us from Amsterdam. This is for Andrea, and this came from Jonas in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And the question is, for a global SaaS brand, how do you balance geo experiments in emerging AI interfaces with the need to maintain a coherent, durable content strategy that still performs in traditional search?
That's a great question. And you can't prioritize everything, right? So I go straight to my buyer. So what system does my buyer use most? Are they a ChatGPT audience? Are they a Claude audience? You will find big differences, meaningful, measurable differences in audiences. So for example, accountants, HR professionals, they tend to use Microsoft products more than non-Microsoft products, right? So like you will find that if you sell into those audiences, likely your referral traffic from any Microsoft product, including SharePoint and all of that stuff, that should be the majority of where you're seeing your traffic, and therefore where you're going to optimize. You're going to optimize for anything Microsoft. In marketing, we are seeing this massive shift from ChatGPT to Claude, as Claude has expanded its code and integration components. And so like, I think my clients that are selling into marketers have optimized for ChatGPT. That is still where a lot of the best referrals are coming in from. So you have to optimize for ChatGPT and now increasingly Claude. So I would start at the buyer always and say like, where are my buyers using this? All of the tools that we were talking about earlier in this session, those will give you by LLM results so that you can understand where are the majority of our people coming from. You can also use the referral traffic from your website to understand that, because I don't think you should be all things to all LLMs. You want to focus on the ones though where your buyers are mostly going, would be how I'd
And it's interesting, from the questions that have come in for both of you, I have the sense that a lot of the marketing executives that are in the audience today are feeling as if geo and SEO are, as you mentioned, Andrea, diametrically opposed. And, obviously it's new, but they are complementary in many ways. So.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I said, even from a messaging and positioning, right? Like what looking at how LLMs perceive your brand and how they're interpreting the narrative of you out in the universe, that really mostly ultimately ends up impacting our brand, our positioning, our messaging, because it becomes very clear when you confuse a robot, it's not a perspective anymore, right? Like it's not one person's opinion versus another person's opinion. It is the robot. This is what the robot thinks of your brand. This is what we are telling the internet, and therefore how the robot is interpreting it. So it's a real, again, like it's a call to arms to get really clear on who are we for, what do we cost, who are our best customers, and how do we find more of them. And the good thing about the LLM is, especially for small brands, if there's any small brands at the event, like it is such a great opportunity for small brands to compete in a way that typical SEO, you were never going to get on the first page, right? If you're in a category like CRM or MAP, you're never going to get on the first page. Salesforce, Adobe, HubSpot, probably Brevo, they've taken all of those spots from you. But like, if you're a small brand trying to compete, if you really niche it in, LLMs will expose you if you are good at telling that story. So I just think it's a huge opportunity, especially for small brands, and a call to arms for bigger brands to be more clear and more transparent about what you cost, what your differentiators are, all that good stuff.
And I like this next question, and we'll finish here, Channing. As we're coming to the end of the session, I love this question because, having worked with Brevo, I know that the solution integrates so many channels so nicely. So, which is something that I think a lot of organizations, even to this day, struggle with. So this is from Grace in San Francisco. And Grace's question is this: as you orchestrate email, SMS, and other communication channels with AI, how do you avoid the trap of hyper-personalized campaigns that lean towards spam instead of creating experiences that buyers actually want to opt into?
Interesting. That's almost a hyperbole, the idea of hyper-personalized campaigns that create spam. So, what I believe is, when we talk about hyper-personalized campaigns, is they should be personalized to what customers want, and we need to ensure that that's the outcome of our personalization. Our personalization should, again, align with the data set. So when I think of, there's a couple things that jump out to me in that question, and I agree, Michael, it's a really good one. The idea of orchestration. That's really where it starts. So we need to, everything we're doing in marketing starts with this element of orchestration, and orchestration starts with your data. So we need to understand, how are we capturing our data? Where is that data input coming from? And then bringing all that data together so we can understand our marketing campaign that we're going to run is to these people, these different individuals. We can categorize them in various ways. But even within that, if we get really good and our AI agents become very effective at this, we can go down to very small micro categorization, and that allows us to get better at that hyper personalization. But it starts with the data. So we need to understand how we're engaging, how these customers like to engage. Do they like to engage via WhatsApp, via SMS? Where are they going physically? I mean, we can track some of that with various tools. What are they? Do they like to engage over email or at home or on the road? So all these elements, and then of course, what are they interested in? That allows us to have a truly personalized experience. And once you have that personalized marketing experience, then you avoid the idea of spam. Then you really engage with someone the way they want to be engaged with. And that's what our goals are.
Yeah, and really understanding, their preferred communication channels is what I'm hearing.
Yep, exactly.
Makes a lot of sense. So I want to keep everybody on track for our next presentation from Patrick Murphy over at Toggle AI. But with that in mind, I'd like to thank Channing and Andrea for their fantastic presentations today and joining us on this panel. As always, if you have I know we didn't get to all the questions, and if you do have additional questions and you wanted to reach out to Channing, Andrea, or any other speakers you've heard at the event today, that big orange button at the top of the site will get you there. We'll get you connected. And once again, Channing and Andrea, thank you so much for joining us on this panel today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michael, for having us.
Thank you.